Alright, today's video we're going to be talking about the JCW here. It's from Forward Controls Design. Roger released this not too long ago. It's designed for tightening up castle nuts. It's called a joint castle nut wrench, as it has two different designs here on opposing ends, 90 degrees from or 180 degrees from each other. One engages 3 of the notches on the castle nut, whereas the other side only engages 2. It's a nice departure from some of the other offerings. One of the more popular Magpul wrenches here. This is actually a really great tool, but can be a little bit limiting on some compatibility with certain end plates. And then definitely a huge improvement over something kind of cheap like this Amazon, God knows who made this, Chinesium armorer's tool here, which actually the tines are so long that these actually will start to gouge the threads on the receiver extension threads. And then of course this is probably one of the more popular, the stamped Tapco, which is actually made of some really tough metal here. I've actually drilled this one to accommodate a wrench, but even this though, without having any provisions for a torque wrench and its small size, it's hard to get the leverage to get the proper torque rating on here. And then of course you've got your other multi-use tools here, like the BCM castle nut tool, which can double as a castle nut tool wrench. Kind of temporary use here. These tools aren't designed to be used over and over. They'll start to spread out over time. But even then, still, it engages 3 points on the castle nut, which leaves it limited to a certain, for a lot of end plates it's fine, but even the ESF by Forward Controls Design, I'll show you here. I've got an example where you're only left with 2 of the notches for torquing down the castle nut. But anywho, Roger designed this tool, I think partly out of necessity because of the ESF covering up a quarter of the castle nut, and that not always having the 3 notches to engage off of most of the common armorer's wrenches like the Magpul and some of the others I've mentioned. But it's made of 4140. It's black oxide coated. The finish work is pretty good. The fit on the castle nut though is incredibly precise. I wouldn't say it snaps into place, but I can leave it sitting there and there's very little play, maybe just a couple thousandths there, which is nice given the sometimes odd positions you're left, depending on your bench and configuration. The odd positions you're left with putting force on tightening this down. It's nice to have a nice precise fit so you don't have to risk it slipping out and damaging any of your components. The first run, which this one's from, we're listed as 38 to 40 on the tool. The technical manual actually is 40 foot-pounds plus or minus 2. Roger did make a note of this. He released these anyway, but at a discounted price. But the correct torque range is 38 to 42 foot-pounds. But again, that's listed on the site. And anyone who has been through any type of quality armorer's course will already know that torque value. But anywho, to give you a demonstration here of how nice it works, I've got the Geisley reaction block here. This is a completely stripped Noveski lower. There's nothing in it. There's no buffer retainer or anything. But it's strictly here for demonstration purposes. But Roger's tool is provisioned for a 1/2 inch drive, which will accept most common torque wrenches that you'll use with the torque values that you need to be working with here. I'll set this torque wrench to 40 foot-pounds right in the middle. I do want to point out one thing. If using something like the Geisley reaction block, which I highly recommend, as a much more secure manner of tightening up your castle nut, and it also gives you the ability to keep your lower receiver perfectly indexed and aligned while tightening. But the Magpul wrench, you have to make sure it's on the receiver first before placing in there, and it kind of has to dangle off until you're ready to apply torque. One little plus is Roger's tool, you don't have to do that. You just go in, run it to almost flush to the back. You do need to have some room for the head of the torque wrench, but just cinch it down. On this particular, actually let me show you that first. On this particular castle nut is a good demonstration of why you need the two ends on this wrench. If you'll look here, it's hard to tell, maybe you can or can't from the video, but on this castle nut, given the design of the ESF from Forward Controls, only two of the wrench slots are accessible, which is great for this tool, because it has the end that only has two on it, unlike almost every other option I've just showed you here that I see commonly used on a lot of AR group pages. But you'll see there it engages, and it does give you enough room here. It does give you enough room here to get to the recommended torque value without bumping into the end plate here. Whereas, you know, this isn't going to fit. The mag pull will not fit. None of these others will fit. But anyhow, go ahead and slide this back into the reaction block. Again, giving space for the head of the torque wrench. 1/2-inch drive again. Again, this is a very precise fit. It is a very snug fit. The mag pulls pretty good, but even then there's some play. So as you're pulling, you know, you got to be very conscious not to have it sway left or right and cause the tool to slip. But as you're tightening here, right there, absolutely no hint at slipping. The tool engages nicely. It does not rub the receiver extension threads. It got to the 40 foot-pounds with very little drama there. But anywho, tighten that up nicely. Now it's ready to be staked. But again, guys, these things, let me look on the website here. Looks like Roger still has, actually they're on sale right now. That they're on sale on the website on Forward Controls Design for 25 bucks. Not sure how long that sale is going to last, but it's a 17% savings. For the money, it's probably one of the better tools for guys that are limited on toolbox space. This thing goes nicely in a toolbox. Yes, you got to use the torque wrench with it, whereas the mag pull offering here is kind of an all-inclusive thing. This does stow nicely. I do keep mine up here on a magnetic bar, so I try not to keep any of my readily used tools stored in drawers. But anywho, for the guys that are limited on space or have smaller toolboxes, this is a great addition. Takes up very little space. Made of very high quality. It's made of good quality steel here, and it's machined to a very good and precise fit. But anyhow, that's the demonstration of it. Tighten the castle nut up here on this Noveski lower quite well. And if you're in the market for some new tools, go check out Forward Controls Design.